Only 2 rounds left in the 2016 championship, and the racing today is going to be epic, as Gauteng is the home to South African motorsport. It's hot and it's dry, and the crowds are streaming in to witness some spectacular racing. I'm Sasha Martininga, and welcome to round 5 of the Sasol GTC Championship. We are here at the legendary Zwartkops Raceway just outside Pretoria. Owned by the Du Toit family, Zwartkops was born out of passion with the purpose to create the most exciting motoring centre in Africa. Looking at the current championship standings, Gennaro Bonafide made some great headway in his challenge to take first place from Michael Stephen with his 2 wins at Kyalami, while Simon Moss and Matthew Hodges are in a tight battle for 3rd and 4th. But what will today bring?
Kyalami was amazing. We had a great race weekend. I knew from first session already the car felt fantastic. The guys done a great job at the Sasol BMW GTC team. So, it was really feeling good, and we managed to come in with a lot of points and 2 wins, pole positions. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, Kyalami, obviously we were hoping to get some more wins, but we can't win them all. We had a few issues in practice which really put us on the back foot. Only really did 1 session and made a change for qualifying, which didn't quite work, and we weren't where we wanted to be on the grid. But I think in the races we came back strong. Race 1, I certainly had the pace and caught Gennaro. Race 2, pretty much a match for each other, but he just had a better first lap and managed to make a bit of a gap. So pace-wise we were good. So on a bad weekend to settle for seconds, I was quite happy.
Yeah, Kyalami is very good for us with regards to the results, but and only because pretty much everybody else fell out. I wasn't fast enough, unfortunately. The team did a superb job on my motor car. I didn't miss a beat the whole of Sunday. Saturday we battled a bit, and the guys worked really late on Saturday night, sorted out the problem. So all credit to the team. Magic job by everybody involved. But yeah, we're on it this weekend. I have an idea that should make me a bit quicker and a plan to make me faster. So let's have a go and bring home the results again.
That was Kyalami. This is a new venue and a new day. Can Gennaro Bonafide maintain his winning streak, or will Michael Stephen break his heart and end all of his glory?
Yeah, practices have been going well in the Sasol BMW. We've done it in 1 so far, and everyone's been on a bit different tyres across the board, but we'll see what happens. Qualifying is this afternoon. The weather looks ominous. There's been SMSs from insurance companies going out about rain and storms and that, so we might be a bit of a wet qualifying, but I'm not scared. I love racing in the rain.
Yeah, obviously we've had a very good run. The cars have been fast, reliable, and that's one thing that we do focus on, making sure that they're reliable. And coming into this round, we're just going to go out there and hopefully we can, obviously we're going to push hard for wins, but it's at a late stage in the championship, and finishing is probably more important than the win. So we're going to be driving with our head this weekend for sure.
You don't want to miss that battle. Round 4 at Kyalami saw its fair share of frustration with engine troubles and the heat causing a lot of disappointment for the drivers and their crews. Hopefully things will be more settled today, but who can forget the incident between Henny Groenewald and Matthew Hodges?
Well, Kyalami was pretty disastrous in between an incident that I had and a car that we had some overheating trouble. I didn't even manage to do a lap, so we sat out the second heat, and unfortunately didn't score any points then, didn't do any development in terms of doing laps to go forward. So it's something that we want to forget and work on going ahead.
Yeah, well, Kyalami was very frustrating for us, for myself, for the team. We put a lot of effort into the Kyalami weekend. We did a lot of testing, positive testing, and we arrived at Kyalami on a really positive note. And yeah, just it literally fell apart. The incident between myself and Henny, look, that's in the past now. We put it behind us. We've moved forward, and we're looking forward to what's lying ahead of us.
As we take a look at the current GTC Production Championship points, Daniel Rose seems to have this season all his way with an overwhelming lead over his rivals. But Sean Duemini, Mandlim Dakane and Charles Smallberger are all in the race to the finish. The big move of Kyalami was Mandlim Dakane, who jumped over Charles Smallberger on points when Charles could not compete for the weekend after spinning out and hitting the barrier during the practice rounds.
Well, Kyalami went pretty well, I felt. I enjoyed the truck, and I think all the drivers did the same. The results were good. We let's say that the team prepared a great car all weekend. We just unfortunately had a problem in the second heat, but that it was just a fault that nobody could prevent. But all in all, second overall, another podium on the trot, and a 1-2 for me and Dan. So I think all in all a good result, and I loved every lap of the track.
Kalame was a big disappointment for us because in the second practice session I put the car in a wall at the mine shaft at about 180 kilometers per hour. So now I wrecked the rear end completely. And then we had to get the car ready for Zwartkops. It's actually a brand new rear end from about the B-pillar right to the end. And just a big thanks to DMAC Auto Body and Volkswagen Motorsport, Mark Rowe for supplying all the parts, and Nathan's Motorsport for fixing it up again and making it new.
With a track length of 2.4 kilometers, Zwartkops never fails to deliver some exciting racing. 8 turns with some fast straights. Great overtaking opportunities at the hairpin as well as at the tabletop. 5 right-hand turns, 3 left-hand turns. They will be on full throttle for over 60% of this lap. They'll be using the hard compound, and it's a clockwise direction race circuit.
All right, so it's the second race that we are back at the Zwartkops racetrack. The guys are looking at a lot of information that they've gained from all the testing. This is the home circuit for many, many, many teams here. Obviously, the main thing is that we had a very wet qualifying session. It mixed up the grid a lot, but race day is dry and it is stinking hot. Very important is temperatures, as we said, across the entire race season so far. Zwartkops has the biggest impact in terms of engine temps, charge temperatures, as well as brake temperatures. The guys are going to make sure that they get the cars to the end of the race, and overall we've got to look at a very good and interesting race for the championship winner in GTC as well as in GTC production. We're looking at Michael Stevens still being the race favorite. However, we're looking at the BMWs having a very, very good run here, being that this is their home circuit and all their testing is done here. Let's take a look at the hot lap.
I'm Henny Groenewald, and you're on board for Hot Lap in the Sasol GTC Racing Team's BMW. Approaching turn 1, high-speed corner. Important to use the maximum downforce available through here to get good lap time. Approaching turn 2, hairpin corner, tightest corner on the track, down to second gear with a sequential gearbox, and try and get as quick an exit as possible through here. Turn 3 is approaching with a high-speed corner, but flat out all the way through. Important not to try and get too much steering angle through, scrubbing any speed. High-speed approach to turn 4, another high-speed corner, down 1 gear to 4th gear. Important corner to really not scrub too much speed, but to keep the speed through going all the way up to turn 5. A little bit unsighted coming to turn 5. Braking, as you see, the 50-meter board, down 3 gears to second gear. Important to get good accuracy coming into turn 6 because you want early acceleration down the hill. Flat out over the curve, turn 7. Downhill approaching the last corner on the track. Difficult here not to brake too late. You want to really slow the car down well to have a quick exit onto the main straight. That's a lap around Zwartkops.
Sasol GTC action right here at Zwartkops with me, Gary Famata. Gary, you know this track exceptionally well. Always delivers some spectacular racing.
Yeah, it certainly does. A nice and tight, short circuit. It gives some good racing. Of course, this is where GTC all started early on in the year, and interesting to see now the guys, really coming to grips with the cars, and some entries that we didn't have at the first race. Johan Ferrari, in fact. So I think we're going to see a good race today. I think the guys are certainly different to what we had the last time out here.
Well, listen, I'm glad you mentioned Johan Ferrari, because yesterday in free practice it was all about Henny Groenewald, and then the rain came down. Michael Steven put in an exceptional lap to be on pole, but Johan Ferrari there in second. He's desperate for a good performance.
He certainly is. I think frustrating last couple of races. I think, wanting to make up for that, there's no doubt about it. Henry Groenewald, as you said, is definitely on the pace. I think the wet setup probably didn't work for them in qualifying yesterday. But as you mentioned, Michael Steven, you've got to take my hat up to Michael. Again, just making the most of all his opportunities. He actually ran. They did a shakedown here on Thursday afternoon. It did rain. He was one of the only guys to go out. So he knew what he was doing yesterday in qualifying, and it certainly showed.
Motorsport is such a great leveler. We come from Kyalami, a double win for Gennaro Bonafide. He must have been so excited about today. All of a sudden, he's got it all to do to try and catch Michael.
Well, he does. There's a slim chance of the championship there for him. Obviously, need a lot of luck to make that happen, but he needs to get up and be able to race with Michael. But I think the pace is there. I just think that the wet weather also affected him yesterday, and the car certainly quicker than it looks today. So I think for the race now, we're going to see something special.
When it comes to that rolling start, Michael Steven might be on pole, but I tell you, watch out for Johan Ferrari and Michael Stevens' teammate Simon Moss, because he also wants to get valuable points to try and pip someone like Gennaro in the championship.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, Simon, I think, wants a good result. It was a terrible Kyalami. He had that massive crash out there. And, you know, there's been a lot of occasions where he's had a fast car this year and hasn't maybe capitalized to the effect that he should have. So I think, you know, coming towards the season's end now, he knows the circuit well. You know, and he wants to also beat his teammates. You know, Michael has had it all his own way. He wants to show everybody that Michael's not the only winner in the team.
Well, let's go racing.
Well, let's go racing indeed, and here we're starting race 1 at Zwartkops with Michael Stephen on pole position with some sublime laps in the wet weather, and clearly more than a second, 1.4 seconds in fact, in front of Johan Fourie. Great to see the EPS courier cars with Johan Fourie and Fast Development prepared car on the front row of the grid, Gary.
Yeah, and you may be wondering why the times look a little bit slow. Of course, qualifying was actually held in the wet, and I tell you what, I did watch the session. Michael Stephen managed to secure almost 2 extra laps in that session by getting out ahead of everybody else and staying out there right until the end of the flag, and that pole position was the reward of those efforts.
I think it was important for him to get right there and to post those last laps in front of everyone else, and we could see that he did a setup change to get more rear wing on the car, which gave him the traction in the wet weather conditions. So very, very clever work from the Terry Moss racing team. Well, the guys are essentially lined up with Graham Nathan and Matthew Hodges bringing up the rear of the field. Matthew didn't have a particularly good qualifying session, but let's go racing, and here we go with Michael Stephen leading the field into turn 1 with Johan Fourie in close attendance. Some great shots that we're seeing here, and you're going to say Simon Moss holding his position quite well into turn 2, but really we've got to look at seeing if whether the Sasol BMW cars can start to put some pressure onto Simon and Johan Fourie.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, but Michael Stephen in his customary position there out in front, Johan Fourie you know, right on his tail, and the 2 VWs side by side going to turn 4. It's on board now with Graham Nathan, and remember we have Matthew Hodges on his outside.
Yeah, I think it's quite important that the Volkswagen Motorsport team have a good result. They've been looking quite racy here, especially Matthew Hodges. You've got to say that with a little bit of luck, we can see some good results from the Volkswagen Motorsport team in those brilliantly turned out Jettas. Oh, a massive incident there between Simon Moss and Johan Fourie. Simon completely sideways with Henny Groenewald trying to get through there. Looking on car footage there, the slightest of touches going into turn 5. Who was at fault there, Gary?
Well, you know what, I think Johan did obey the rule that we have in GTC, which instructs drivers to leave some space and opportunity open. I think he did that. Simon just going in there slightly too hot, and really, I think, ruined a good opportunity for Johan. And here we go, Simon now added with Gennaro Bonafide.
Well, some smoke pouring out of the left-hand front wheel of Simon Moss's car, and he's obviously trying to keep that position from Gennaro Bonafide, but Gennaro kind of taking the inside line into turn 1, and another contact as well with the Simon Moss car going off. It's a big shame there, because I think Simon was looking quite racy today. But again, you know, you got to look at there who turned in on whom. You see Gennaro taking the inside line. There was a gap there.
There was a gap there. I think Gennaro did try and get out of it and just caught the rear end of Simon's car. But of course, it is a very, very fast corner, tricky one to go through there side by side. And of course, now this has sent out, or caused the need to get out the safety car and bunch everybody up, which is not a bad thing for the race's sake. We see Michael Stephen now, the 2 Sasol BMWs right behind him.
Well, I think all the formulas in the world do it, but it's great to see that. I think it's our first safety car in GTC this year. But yeah, Michael Stephen is sort of controlling the pace as the safety car pulls in. And Michael Stephen bolts up. I mean, this man is wide awake, Gary. He does not miss a trick. Great start there, giving himself a bit of breathing space across the start-finish line to make sure that nobody really runs him close into turn 2, because you've got to position your car turn 1, make sure you get a good and easy line into turn 2, and no one is even close to him.
No, as you said, Vic, wide awake. Of course, Michael, the consummate professional. And yeah, just having a look at Simon Moss, obviously now way back after that spin and in contact with Gennaro Bonafide.
Yeah, I think Simon wants to really try and get and close the gap and come up front there. But it's great to see a gaggle of GTC cars with Michael Stephen, Henny Groenewald. Great to see Henny back on strong there, Gary. I mean, he hasn't had the best of seasons, but he really looked racy this weekend.
Yeah, certainly so. His quickest in all the free practice sessions on the Friday, quite comfortably. So you know, definitely his turnaround for Henny in terms of how the car's been driven and just the performance up there in second place. Something, as you quite rightly said, that he desperately needed.
In car with Johan Fourie, I mean, he must be fuming. You know, he was in P2 position, looking for a great result and looking to be quite racy. I mean, the team did quite a bit of testing before the start of this race, and overall, you've got to say that he was looking for a good result, possibly a podium, if not challenging Michael Stephen for the win. And the cars are going wide. They're really pushing these cars to the limit there, as we did see in turn 4. I think it was Matthew Hodges putting a wheel left rear off as well. So, you know, these racing drivers now, they're comfortable with the GTC cars, comfortable without ABS, etc. They're really letting it all hang out there.
Yeah, they certainly are trying hard at the moment as we're riding along with Gennaro now on that onboard shot there. Flat out through turn 3 at Zwartkops on the run up to turn 4, almost 200 kilometers an hour going in there. And then the quick one down shift and then into the right-hander.
Yeah, the guys are using a new drop gear this particular race meeting, which shortens all the ratios in the gearbox. And I mean, all the drivers are basically raving about it, and certainly so. That you've also got to change what gears you're going to use in certain corners. There were quite a few times where the guys were using first gear between turns 5 and 6 in previous testing and previous races, but now it's a second gear corner. So quite a bit of stuff that the guys still got to get used to.
Yeah, of course, the car's just becoming better and better. So look at Graham, something happening to that car. They're actually going off the road.
Yeah, we see Johan Fourie diving inside into turn 8. Graham trying to get the run on him, but the car looked very nervous out of turn 7. It didn't look quite settled enough, and then had to run wide to try and keep it on track. In fact, putting 2 wheels off on the grass, and there you saw Johan Fourie dive on the inside to him, and then Simon Moss as well trying to get and close the gap up. But remember, if you just circulate, you can score some points, and obviously Simon is trying to get 3rd position in the championship, which would be a great result for the Engine Extreme Terry Moss Racing team.
Yeah, it certainly would. And you said the field not that big at the moment, and obviously that's why just being there is going to enable you to score a whole lot of points that you're going to need in your championship fight. But yeah, Michael Stephen just starting to open up a gap now, and as we said, quite a comfortable position for him. You know, he's been out there a lot this year, but for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, I mean, this is a great battle that we have between the 2 BMWs and Matthew Hodges' VW Jetta.
Yeah, I think it's great to see Matthew Hodges. He has shown some good pace in testing. The one thing I want to make a mention of, Michael Stephen was testing on the Friday at Zwartkops, and most of the guys were using the soft compound tires. He used old hard compound tires and was actually quite racy. So I think the indications were all there that Michael Stephen was going to be a very, very good favourite, or a good bet to get a pole position and possibly to win the race. But he's doing a great job. Fantastic race for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, as you mentioned, in terms of what we are seeing for on-track action for the fans, especially with the Volkswagen Jetta of Matthew Hodges in close attendance to the Sassel BMWs.
Yeah, this is ABC having a look now with Matthew in that car now, just chasing the 2 BMWs. And of course, Zwartkops, one of the most difficult tracks to overtake on here in South Africa. Not an easy place, to find a place to pass. So it can become a little bit frustrating, you know, at a circuit like this, to make that opportunity for yourself.
Well, one of the interesting facts about Zwartkops, even though it's only 2.5 kilometers long, you have about 70% wide open throttle. So in terms of engine performance, it's probably one of the most difficult races of the year to try and get maximum power and maximum lap time out of these cars. So cars with good power plants are actually going to do particularly well here. And being high up in altitude, Gary, cooling was a massive issue.
Yeah, and of course the brakes as well. Yeah, just really a demanding circuit all round, and it's quite amazing because, you know, you'd think that East London or, you know, Cape Town with all those long straights really put a focus on power, but, you know, being up here, just the nature of the circuit, it's actually quite incredible that it's the case at Zwartkops as well. So very, very difficult track to get right.
Yeah, we see Henny there as well, and he's coming through turn 2 trying to chase down Michael Stephen, but obviously looking in his rearview mirrors because he's got Gennaro Bonafide in car 32, and then car 57, the Volkswagen Jetta of Matthew Hodges. I mean, he's really challenging Gennaro there. Gennaro, is he going defensive, or is he trying to pass Henny into turn 4?
Yeah, I think he's looking for an opportunity to pass Henny. I mean, we can see, did you see that oversteer from the onboard shot of Matthew's car there? And that's going to cause him that loss up the hill now, and that's why you see the 2 BMWs open up a slight gap.
Yeah, I think it was quite incredible to think. A lot of guys were talking about the aero effect of these cars that maybe you can't follow in the high-speed corners, but it has proven that the car's not that sensitive to close following. So Matthew really trying particularly hard to try and get through turn 4 to get the run up to turn 5, because turn 5 is quite frankly the corner where you would possibly overtake. You see Gennaro really trying to run in hot to Henny. But, you know, Gary, if you run into the entry hot, you sometimes sacrifice on the exit.
Exactly. I mean, it's all about the whole thing in motor racing, slow in, fast out. You know, you want to get the traction, the drive onto the back wheels, onto the tar road. And you know, any K that you lose or gain here is going to make a difference right at the end of the straight.
Michael Stephen coming out of turn 2. This is a first gear corner for him, and he winds the gearbox all the way up to 5th gear in a very, very short straight. These cars are sounding quite fantastic with these shorter gearbox ratios in the cars now for the first time at the Zwartkops Raceway, and great action. I think Matthew Hodges is lining himself up for a pass here, Gary.
Well, he's just got to keep it on the road there. You know, every time he drops the wheel off onto the dirt like he just did there now, the gap opens up slightly. So difficult where he is indeed, but you know, just got to stay calm and just really try and set up your move. It needs to be clean. As we said, these cars are so evenly matched, you know, as they are, that you're going to just really have to work hard to get the traction out of there.
Oh no, we see a problem for Graham Nathan, what we learned to be a battery voltage problem. Unfortunate for him, he was looking particularly racy as well. It's a track he knows particularly well. He's won many championships and closed out many championships at Zwartkops Raceway, and this was not to be a good result for him, and he'll try and circulate as best he can towards the end of the race to try and bag some valuable points, because obviously the guys are looking with one eye towards the manufacturers championship as well.
Yeah, 100%, and riding along with our championship leader and race leader Michael Stephen with the battle behind, and Jan Fourie seeming to close that gap now, and I think edge his way back up onto the 3 cars in front of him.
Yeah, it must be so disappointing for him, because oh my word, Matthew Hodges going off turn 4 there and really trying extremely hard to kind of keep up the bumper of Gennaro Bonafide to try and get the outbraking maneuver into turn 5, but didn't quite work out for him. But that obviously has allowed Johan Fourie to try and close the gap as well. The rear bumper hanging loose there as a result of the car bottoming into turn 5 and sliding out of turn 7. So not a comfortable car to drive for Matthew at this stage, but it does look to have some pace.
Yeah, and I can tell you what, turn 7 normally is an easy corner flat, and to see these cars sort of going sideways through there, the drivers having to actually drive it through there, just tells you that these are serious pieces of kit.
Yeah, I think most of the teams are sort of evolving their setup, and overall we've seen that the cars have initially understeer tendencies, but the teams are slowly getting on top of it, and the oversteer that's slowly coming to the cars, the teams build it into the cars to try and get good positioning, because I think one of our drivers, Johan Fourie, always says loose is fast.
Yeah, well, looks like the positions are stabilizing. We are coming up to the end of the race here. Now looking at Michael Stephen, comfortable out in the front there. Really solid performance from him again. Matthew Hodges hasn't been able to get onto the tail of the 2 BMWs and create an overtaking opportunity for himself. Still driving around with that bumper hanging on there. And Graham Nathan, we saw him earlier on there, just unfortunately on the last lap, slowing down and not making it to the flag.
Very unfortunate for Graham Nathan, but a celebration for Henny Groenewald, getting a 2nd position and a podium for Gennaro Bonafide as well. So to recap, Michael Stephen winning the race from 4 seconds from Henny Groenewald and Gennaro Bonafide, your podium position winners, and then Michael van Rooyen in 8th position did not finish.
Yeah, I think, it all started, as you mentioned, on Thursday. We had an afternoon session. It rained. We quickly came into the pits, put wets on, and got some laps in. And I think that set up the race win in terms of qualifying. I could go out there and push from the beginning, put it on pole, and this is one of those tracks when you're on pole, you can really get in front and go. So yeah, that's pretty much what we did. We put our head down on lap 1 and pulled a bit of a gap. There was some carnage behind which helped, but yeah, a good race.
Yeah, look, it was an interesting race. I started P5. We didn't have the best qualifying session yesterday, but be it as it may. I had a good start. Myself and Simon had a touching in turn 1. I went up the inside into turn 1, and I don't think he knew I was there up the inside. So as I saw he was turning in, I tried to avoid contact, and we just made a slight touch, which obviously sent him spinning, unfortunately there. But after that, yeah, I put a bit of pressure on Henny, and I felt like I had a good pace, but it's just risky to have a go.
Yeah, I think so. The weekend has proved a little bit more positive for me. I've been struggling to find the podium of late, and I think we've made a good step in the right direction. A car that's feeling a bit more neutral and nice and reliable. So happy to get a Sasol GTC race car again on the podium for myself, and hopefully we can go a little bit further, that we can be fighting with Michael a bit up front.
Michael Stephen has put one hand closer to the championship with an emphatic victory in race 1 right here at Zwartkops. But Gary, first time we've had a safety car intervention. It was quite interesting.
It was. I think, again, Michael, something he probably didn't want to have, at that point in time. I think he just wants to wrap this championship up now. But we had Simon Moss, Johan Fourie touching each other, going off, and then eventually Simon and Gennaro crashing. So a bit of action the first couple of laps here, which caused those safety cars. But I think for the second heat today now, I think if you look up into the sky, you can almost see the rain clouds on their way here. I think it may arrive, so let's see.
It is going to be a fascinating contest, but can anybody beat Michael Stephen? Johan Verrey back there in second position. He's got the two other BMWs that are going to be pushing him. Johan was a little bit unlucky, taken out, so hopefully he can put some pressure on Michael.
Yeah, look, if you look, he certainly caught up to that second, third place battle in the first heat. So the pace in the cars there's no doubt about it. And only looking for about 0.3 of a second to catch Michael Stevens. So Gennoro's another one who I think also has pace. I don't think we saw his true pace in that first heat. So if they can make their way through, Michael may not have it all his own way.
The big question is, what is the weather going to do? Looking at the GTC production car category, Daniel Rose seems to have it set up, Gary, but there's a great battle between Charles Smallberger and also Mandla Mndikane.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think the championship at this point in time, I think Daniel certainly can win it today. There's no doubt about that if he has a good afternoon. But yes, I think everybody tightening up in the field, and I think this track has always given us some very, very good racing in any production car field. So I think the youngsters, some of them actually, in fact, writing exams yesterday, are going to be out giving it a full go today and hard racing.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Charles Smallberg, I mean, he had a big off at Kai Lamy, but he's come back, the car's ready. He knows he's got to take that fight right up to Mandla.
Yeah, I think so. And also the guys are setting themselves up for next year. The field is growing. There's going to be about 10 cars in that class next year, some different brands coming into it. So these guys really want to produce something. There are other opportunities that are available now for them. So they've got to perform to try and take advantage of that.
Also joining us, the Zwartkops for the first time in the GTC production class is Devin Piazza Musso. Comes from a long heritage of racing family. A lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, listen, I watched him yesterday in the first session. I mean, he seemed to come to grips with the car very quickly. It is the ex-Graham Nathan Golf. So I think we can expect to see some action there. I mean, I think he's going to be in the thick of it. And just glad to have him here in GTC.
Terrific stuff. We're in for some hot racing.
Well, all right, it's race one for GTC production with poleman Daniel Rowe leading them out into turn one at the Zwartkops Raceway. Gary, I think the overriding narrative of this particular race is can Daniel Rowe close out the GTC production championship?
Yeah, he's certainly well aware of what he needs to do that, and right now in the position that he wants to be, and I think certainly can sense that championship there, and I think we'll approach the race with that in mind today.
Well, car 44, Mandla Mndikane, who's Daniel Rowe's teammate and needs a good result here, and he's trying to kind of run Daniel as close as possible into turn four. But Devin Piazza Musso, Gary, a debutant in the series, didn't have particularly the greatest of qualifying results. However, he's coming through the field particularly nicely, and at the moment is lying in third position. He doesn't seem to have a big problem driving these cars.
No, he's adapted very well. In fact, had no issues whatsoever. As you said, they're right up in that lead battle. As we're taking a look at George Smallberger in the Shield car, also struggling with wiring issues in that car for the entire season.
Yeah, I think it's been a very difficult road from him, and unfortunately hasn't had the reliability that he would like. But overall, hopefully he can get that fixed soon enough, as the safety car, remember, Simon Moss had a problem in race one, and the safety car had to be deployed. And again, Daniel Rowe leads the guys out, and again seems to have a cool head on his shoulders there, making sure that he's got a sort of a margin to the rest of the field and get into turn two without having too many issues and having to take an inside line.
Yeah, he's got through turn two there. Everything's calm. Daniel Rowe exactly comfortable knowing what he needs to do there. As we can see, just going up through the gears up to turn four in this GTR. And I tell you what, they've got a decent turn of pace, these GTC production cars.
100%, Gary. They certainly do. And they actually go very fast down the straights, and very challenging to drive, very, very hard under the brakes there as well. And you got to just make sure that you are absolutely 100% spot on. Mandla Mndikane, unfortunately, making a huge mistake into turn five, running his teammate very close there, Gary. The last thing you want to do is take your teammate out, especially the championship leader.
Yeah, that would have been an absolute disaster, but a disaster for Mandla Mndikane nonetheless. He's really struggled on the brakes this year. They've had a lot of trouble there, and haven't got to the bottom of that yet. And unfortunately, Mandla going into the air barriers, which they use to keep the motorcycle riders safe.
Well, if you really look at it now, you got Devin Piazza Musso running in P2 in the Kalex sponsored Golf there, it was the ex-Graham Nathan car, so we know it is a particularly fast car. It was a championship-winning car in seasons past. And, I mean, the youngster is doing a fantastic job in unlocking the pace. It really shows you that the junior formulas we have in South Africa are a good breeding ground for driving talent.
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting to see a lot of these guys coming to GTC now. You know, Devin, I think, spent a lot of time in the VW Challenge, you know, but now on a platform like this in GTC, out there getting the kind of exposure. And, you know, just as you said, Vic, just to get drivers that are going to be on the pace immediately, I think just shows we have a very strong sort of pool of young drivers to choose from in South Africa.
Yeah, Devon's opening the gap up with Charles Smallberger, letting the rear end of the car slide. He's very comfortable handling that sort of issues with the car, and looks completely at home in the GTC field. Mark Dutoy running Charles Smallberger quite tight as well in the exit of turn 6 there, Gary. So I think Mark's looking to try and get onto the podium of this GTC race.
Yeah, Mark also, you know, sporadic entries into GTC and had a lot of fun in that BMW this year, and just a very different type of car that he's racing in Class X versus the GTC productions here right now, which, you know, the Golf GTRs and so forth, which we see.
Well, we're looking at Daniel Rowe on the in-car footage there, starting one of his final few laps there, counting down. I'm sure inside the helmet there, he's really counting down what is the actual situation in terms of the championship. Every little lap, every little corner, every little gear change. So he's now coming down towards the end of the race. And Mandla again locking the wheels, especially the rear wheels, into turn 5. But here we go, championship winner, inaugural championship GTC production winner, Daniel Rowe taking the checkered flag.
Yeah, an unbelievable result for Daniel Rowe. What a season he's had, just unbelievable. Of course, part of that VW driver development program, and I believe that there are going to be some very interesting options for him for next year. So I'm sure a young man that's extremely happy with the job that he's done this year.
Well, Daniel waving to the crowd, a very good job. Dominated GTC production in its inaugural year. He must be very, very happy, and I think the whole Volkswagen Motorsport team as well. So here are the results for race 1. Daniel Rowe in P1. That's the overriding storyline with Devin Piazzamuso, the debutant. Fantastic race, and Mark Dutoy in 3rd.
Feels good to win a first national championship. You know, I tried so many times in Polo Cup, and finally I've done it here. So now I'm super stoked. Thanks to Volkswagen, you know, for all the work they do, Scheffler, and to Dean and Chris, even Graham, all his team, Peter. It's been a great season, and we still have one round to go, one more race today, and you know, we look to try and win there as well.
Well, huge congratulations to Daniel Rowe winning the inaugural 2016 GTC Production Car Championship. However, he's still got to have the small business of trying and winning and closing out the remaining races in the championship, and starting with race 2 here at the Zwartkops Raceway, seeing some massively threatening clouds on the horizon. And Charles Smallberger and Devin Piazzamuso, who had a brilliant first race, a debut finishing in 2nd position. Great job by the KLX-sponsored Golf GTI.
Yeah, and just once again, some tight racing in production, and great to have Devin Piazzamuso on board. Yeah, I think certainly going to be a challenger for that championship next year in this category. Mandlam Dekane also going very, very well today. They're, you know, hanging on to Daniel Rowe in front of him. And again, just some great racing. I mean, Devon's looked like he's done this for the last couple of years. You know, it hasn't taken him any time to get used to racing at in production, GTC production.
Running a bit wide there out of turn 7, but here we got Charles Smallberger as well. You know, he needs a good result. He's had some bad luck this year. Remember crashing the car quite heavily at the Kyle Army race meeting, but great to see Charles Smallberger back there, and obviously Mark Dutoy trying to run on the inside of him and making the pass.
Yeah, Mark Dutoy in that black BMW, just covering the line going into turn 4. So once again, looking at Charles Smallberger, you said, Vic, I mean, a tough year for them to have fixed that car there, but, you know, coming back, looking good. The big thing in this heat now, you can see dark skies ahead of them. And, of course, you know, the tyres very, very different on the GTC production. They actually do have grooves in them. Let's see how this is going to pan out.
Yeah, there's a bit of a haze there as well. You know, is the rain starting to fall already? Not quite sure. I think now we'll see cool heads trying to play. Mandla running a bit wide on the exit of turn 8 and on the run down to turn 1. Just got to keep it on the island and make sure that you reach the end of the race, because anything can happen, and usually does happen in these type of conditions.
Yeah, it certainly throws the cats amongst the pigeons. There's no doubt about it. Devin Piazzamuso having lost a bit of ground there. Obviously, we saw him run wide earlier, but you know, now unfortunately has lost a lot of ground to the front runners in GTC production.
Yeah, Devin Piazzamuso coming through turn 2 on the run down to turn 3. Great to see some newcomers into GTC production, and obviously some announcements into the future for some new competitors and young blood coming into the GTC family, Gary.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting year next year for GTC production. A massive increase in the number of cars, manufacturers, brands that are going to be there, making an entry into GTC with some top teams as well that are coming up from other divisions. So looking very, very forward to seeing that. But I definitely did see a couple of spots of rain on the lens down at turn 2 in particular, and obviously getting wetter down there.
Well, when Devon turned into turn 6, the car certainly stepped out on the back end, and on a couple of previous shots we saw Daniel Rowe's car running with the windscreen wipers moving around. So obviously there is some rain there, and again, you know, you got to just check. You can see it on the camera as well in turn 2. You really just got to keep calm, make sure you can hit your brake markers, adjust your brake markers accordingly, adjust your cornering speed accordingly, because it's so simple and so easy to just slide off the road into the barriers, and that's your weekend done.
Yeah, absolutely. The advantage here, though, is that they are running on a semi-slick tyre. It's going to certainly help, you know, the GTC production cars in the conditions. They're not a full slick, which then, of course, makes it even more difficult to drive. In fact, sometimes on a wet track, undrivable. However, right now, things are still looking okay. The rain is definitely coming down. Not too much of it, though, to stop, you know, the GTC production race at this point in time. And, you know, Daniel Rowe still controlling it out in front.
Yeah, and Devon Piazza are keeping it on the island. Great stuff, and keeping a cool head there. But Daniel Rowe, very, very good in these type of conditions. Mandla now coming under pressure from Mark Tutoy. I mean, Mark has raced, I don't know, 1 million laps around the circuit, so he probably knows it like the back of his hand, and knows exactly when the rain comes, where the aquaplaning issues are, where the streams are. So you could probably see him trying to move up the order.
Yeah, look, I mean, the front-wheel drive car, I mean, should, you know, be an advantage in these conditions. That rear-wheel drive BMW, I think, becoming very, very tricky to drive. So I think Mark Tutoy doing a great job in actually closing that gap up to Ndakane.
Yeah, I think Mandla's looking for a good result here. He didn't really have a particularly strong Kyalami race. He made a few errors there, and I think running with a slightly upgraded brake system as well to try and see, to do some testing for GTC production with a view to 2017 championship, to see if we can get the brakes to last a bit longer. But spray coming off the tires as well. So Charles Smalberger is experiencing this, and I think it's about the first race this year that most of these guys are running at the Zwartkops race circuit in the wet. So slippery conditions, really got to make sure that you don't overcook it at all.
No, absolutely not. You can see the rain now really starting to come down there. But as you quite right said, just stay calm, keep it on the island. And we also see the red flag being thrown out there.
Well, red flag's out as well, so obviously that means the end of the race. And if you kind of look at the results of that race, you can see that Daniel Rowe won the race quite comfortably as well, showing his class in the wet weather conditions. And in terms of the championship position, Gary, I mean, Daniel Rowe dominating the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Dominance is no other way to describe it. Daniel Rowe having a fantastic season, arrived in that car and, you know, was on form straight away, and, you know, took the fight to everybody that brought it to him, and certainly came out top and shining. And his teammate Manda Ndakane finishing in second place, also a solid result for him over the season, followed home by Sean Dumini in the Ford Focus, which put up a tremendous fight with Daniel in the opening rounds.
I thought it was fun. You know, we have semi-slicks. The Dunlops work well. I was trying so many different lines, you know, to try and still be quick, and I enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed it. And it's a pity that we had to come in because of the GTC cars. But all in all, I had fun, and yeah, once again, thank you to Volkswagen.
All right, here we go. It's race 2 at the Zwartkops Raceway. And again, Michael Steven is on pole position. There's a position he's become accustomed to this year with a truly dominant racing performance. Johan Fourie locking out the front row, and I think must be very motivated to try and convert that second position, Gary, into a podium position, or maybe even a race win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he can certainly see it. It's within his sights, and I think, you know, coming off that first heat, we had that contact with Simon Moss, definitely wanting to go home with a decent result in the second race.
Well, the Sassel BMWs locking out third and fourth, and then Simon Moss in fifth position, and Michael van Rooyen in sixth position as well.
Yeah, I think Michael's been impressive. Hasn't spent a lot of time in the GTC car yet, and I think in the wet conditions yesterday in qualifying, I've got to say that I was well and truly impressed with his performance there.
Well, the Volkswagen Motorsport team rounding out row 4 with Graham Nathan in 7th and Matthew Hodges not setting a time in 8th position. So let's go racing in race 2. Michael Stephen leading out the field again with Johan Fourie. A bit of deja vu there, Gary, but hopefully we can clean this out and have a good race for Johan starting here now.
Yeah, well, let's see. He is right on the tail of Michael Stephen as they go into turn 2 on this first lap. There you can see closing the door, running in there, carrying a bit more corner speed, mid-corner speed there than Michael, but losing out on the exit, and Johan truly on a charge.
Well, you can see Gennaro Bonafide right behind him, as well as Henny Groenewald, and Michael Vernoyen also a bit racy coming on the outside of the Jettas in turn 3.
Yeah, we're running along with Matthew Hodges. Yeah, very neat angle as we ride up to his teammates, his bumper, as they exit turn 4 and up the hill. You can see Matthew Hodges wanting to find a gap there. You've got to believe that he is a little bit of the quicker of the two and wants to get onto this race in front of him.
Oh, you could see Johan Fourie braking very late, and Gennaro Bonafide trying to get up his inside into turn 6, but looking very unstable in the car there. When it was braking, you could see the rear end of the car stepping out, and Gennaro really looking racy, and the exit of 6 coming down the hill to 8. Is he going to try and do a out-braking maneuver, but thinks the wiser of it, and trying to plan maybe for the exit of 2.
Yeah, it's all about setting it up, you know, and overtaking a maneuver doesn't just happen. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. Try and set up the opportunities. We're going into turn 2 now, but look at the clouds, Vic. We saw them early on. They are definitely darker, and we see Gennaro Bonafide finding his way up into Johan. You've got to say, Johan also, I think, driving very well in these racing conditions. Good racing as Gennaro sneaks it up the inside there on that run down to turn 4.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense, Gary. I mean, overall, you've got to say that Johan maybe has a bit of an issue. It looked very simple for Gennaro to do that out-braking maneuver, get side by side into turn 2, and then blast his way out of turn 2 and into turn 3. And before he reached turn 4, the braking point of turn 4, he was in front of Johan. We did not expect that at all. And now, obviously, Henny Groenewald doing the same thing to Johan Fourie as well. There must be a problem with the car.
Yeah, it does seem to be getting swallowed up by everybody around him at this point in time. Let's just see how quickly Simon Moss can deal with Johan Fourie, if in fact he does have a problem with the car. You know, still seems to be running kind of okay for the moment. We see Matthew Hodges getting up the inside of Simon Moss, so he looks like he's going to be in Graham Nathan, just making sure that he's coming to the party as well.
Yeah, great maneuver by Graham Nathan, coming now and running with Matthew Hodges, really looking racy. The Volkswagen Motorsport cars have probably sorted out their setup, Gary, and it must be said that it's quite possible they could make their way up towards the front end of the field, the sharp end, and you know, it's something what the crowds want to see. Those Jettas are beautiful racing cars. We just haven't had the results that they deserve so far this season.
Yeah, it's been a tough one for them, but you're quite right, and the car's looking very racy here today. And in fact, there we go, you've got Matthew Hodges. It looks like you can see in the background there is all over Johan Fourie as well now.
Yeah, there must be a massive problem with Johan's car. Gennaro Bonafide looking very good out of turn 4, using all the curb, and on the run up to turn 5, a massive braking point here. Huge G-forces, huge temperatures going into the Brembo discs as well. And these cars are really putting on a show for the crowds at Zwartkops Raceway.
Yeah, definitely the car's looking good. They see Johan Fourie just getting some massive oversteer as he tries to power it down the hill there. That may give Matthew the opportunity to stick it up the inside on the downhill. Under braking, he does get his car alongside and completes the move.
Yeah, you got to say that he's obviously being swallowed up by the field, and you can see now Graham Nathan running very tight underneath the bumper of Johan Fourie, getting into turn 1, and we're looking towards an out-braking maneuver into. Oh my word! You got to look at Graham.
Oh no!
It's the last thing you want, Gary. As a team manager, team owner, you really don't want your two drivers to have this sort of contact.
No, you don't. And I think that was just shaping up to be such a brilliant race. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see the rest of it there. Big hit, by Graham into Matthew. Holds up Johan as well, but Matthew stuck in the middle of the road. Simon Moss gets all the positions.
Yeah, kind of like a bumper cars there, and Simon Moss just kept his nose clean and just drove up the inside of all of them there. You know, there was no ways, looking at that in-car camera, that you could say that Graham was ever going to stop the car. He had 2 wheels on the grass. Maybe there's a bit of rain about. The grass could have been a bit damp, and as a result, with the slick tires, he had no chance.
Yeah, it was not going to be a move that was going to happen, as you quite rightly said. You know, remember, these are slick tires, you know, and you put them off onto the grass. There is no grip out there. it is extremely difficult. But as I said, I think for me, just Ruin was a great race, and also what would have been a good race for Graham, and I think he needed a good race.
Well, Gary, let's talk about the weather. You know, we did mention earlier, look at those clouds, they're really threatening, and the rain is definitely coming. The guys are on slick tyres, so, you know, if the rain does come through, who's going to keep it on the island? Because we did do some wet weather practice on the Thursday afternoon, and the guys trying it on the slicks had basically no chance. That it was an ice rink out there, difficult to keep it on the island. So it could be a very, very interesting scenario playing itself out.
Well, you know, definitely you're going to see some action if in fact it does get wet out there. Of course, the tyre temperatures are going to drop tremendously. These tyres are very sensitive to temperature. You know, very much like you have in Formula One sort of tyre technology, where it is critical, and as that happens, you lose grip. So let's hope that you know, things remain calm out there for the moment. It's Michael and Stephen out in front there, followed by the two BMWs. Michael once again just opening up another substantial lead, you know, in this GTC field. But there we go. We can see some of the raindrops now onto the camera lens, and we're going to wait and see you know, how this is going to develop.
Well, we're in car with Michael Stephen, and he's basically the guy who's going to see everything for the first time. He will experience what sort of grip levels there are. The guys will use him as the benchmark and know what the braking points are. So he's got to do the job for the rest of the field, and you've got to be close enough to try and understand what is actually happening there. It was great to see Henny Groenewald in third position as well. You know, he's really had a tough year, but so far, great work by Henny Groenewald.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a big challenge in any situation as a driver to you know, just get yourself onto the pace. You know, you see a teammate that's outperforming at times. It can become very frustrating. You know, and don't underestimate the task of turning that around.
Yeah, we're getting into the back end of lap 6 out of turn 5 and turn 6 there. We saw a lot of maneuvering there, lots of raindrops on the camera. Graham Nathan running wide again. That could be a direct result of the wet conditions.
Yeah, that, and also just remember he gave that, took a big hit on the front end of that car there when he drove into Matthew, which obviously remembered. Here we go, on board now with Henny Groenewald, and we can definitely see now that you know, the rain is coming.
Well, it's voyage into the unknown for our esteemed and very, very good racing drivers out there. I surely wouldn't want to be in their position, Gary, at all. I mean, it's the first time they're racing with the slick tyres in those slightly damp and wet conditions. We did see a lot of times that, you know, when the conditions are slightly damp, there's a bit of a greasy layer on the circuit. There is absolutely no grip, and you can see the rain falling.
It's raining now.
Yeah, I think the guys are sort of hoping and praying that they can reach the end of the race.
Well, now it's just a matter of you know, you could just slow it down. Just slow it down. You cannot underestimate the level of grip out there. There's virtually nothing in it, and you know, we can see Michael Stephen back. In fact, he's losing the car nearly into the tyres there, and you know, spins it all the way down the hill. In fact, to the last corner.
Well, he's in the middle of the road there, so if he stays there, it's quite. Oof, my word, that's quite close there. He really. Oh. It could have been a massive, massive thing. You saw how he pitched the car into a sideways spin there, because he saw it was going head on for the wall. Great driving by Michael Stephen. You know, these are why the guys are the best drivers that we've seen. Simon Moss as well, going off. Gary, they're going off all over the place here. So it's really, really taxing our drivers. They've just got to try and get to the end of this race.
Yeah, look, it's extremely difficult, as we mentioned just now. You know, slick tyres in these conditions, there is no grip. It is really like being on an ice rink out there. And of course, you know, a race next weekend we have as well. So your teams and drivers need to keep these cars together and in one piece just for that final round.
Yeah, I think that was on the back of the minds of all teams, all mechanics, all crew there, to try and just make sure that we can get the cars towards the end of the season. And the marshals are trying to push Michael's car out of the way there. And I think he was trying to get the car started to get back in the race to try and score some points towards the championship. I think it's vitally important for him to just keep that championship challenge